improving health systems, and we are not successful. We have not been successful. So, how is everybody here in this group?
Roger, we're live.
Best, Debbie, I'm probably the oldest here.
The youngest here, Dr. Ken. We are young at
Okay.
heart.
Everyone is young here. We are not going to talk about age.
Yeah, about age.
You are live now.
Yes, we are back live.
No, you
Hello,
have to you have to confront it. I'm turning 60 years old in October.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Congratulations. Big party.
Use Korean cosmetics.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so now we will start the session. I'll pass it to my partner. Ta-da. All the best,
Hi.
Dr. Ken.
Okay, we're going to start the alumni sharing session first with Dr. Kenneth Hartigan-Go. It's about crisis leadership education, building a new generation of problem solvers. So Dr. Ken is head of the Stephen Zulik Graduate School of Development Management at the Asian Institute of Management. He was Philippine DOH Undersecretary from 2015-2016, Director General of FDA October 2012 till October 2014, Deputy Director Bureau of Food and Drugs from 1999 till 2001, and he was a founding executive director of Zulik Foundation
Yeah.
from 2001 to 2009. Faculty UP College of Medicine 1990 till 2006, Ateneo School of Medicine and Public Health 27 till 2010, Doctor of Medicine degree from the University of the Philippines, College of Medicine in 1985, and from Newcastle University, United Kingdom 1998. He was a Fellow of the Royal College of Physicians, Edinburgh, Fellow of the American College of Physicians, Honorary Fellow of the Academy of Medicine, Singapore, and Honorary Fellow of the Singapore College of Physicians since 2017, and the President Philippines College of Physicians from 2017 to 2018. He served previously as a member of the WHO Global Advisory Committee on Vaccine Safety and Advisory Committee on the Safety of Medical Products. He was also president of CNDR. He sits on the steering committee of the NUS Initiative for Health in Asia. Expert panel member of the Center of Regulatory Excellence based in Singapore. Board member of Cullen Foundation Incorporated, Laban Consumer Incorporated, Equicom Saving Bank, Mexicare Health Corporation, Ayala Health Generica, OML Center for Climate Change Adaptation, Card MRI Boti Card Incorporated, and National Council of Biosafety Philippines. He is currently the president of the International Society of Pharmacoeconomics and Outcome Research Philippine chapter. So, Dr. Ken, the time is yours.
Udis, thank you very much for your kind introduction, and I'm so happy to meet our fellow AMSA alumni. I'd like to tell you a story that I found today, my old tie, and this was a necktie given during the 7th AMSI held in Hong Kong, and we participated very actively. I still have it. You see,
Wow.
so it brings back a lot of good memories. And thank you, Dr. Debbie, for twisting my arms and to the organizers. I have no slides, but I'd like to converse with everybody in the audience and have a good day to all of you. I'd like to begin by saying that, yes, I'm a medical doctor, but I have shifted my career to dealing with focusing on education. And not just an ordinary undergraduate education, it's a master's program. And let me explain a little bit. No? I come from the context, having been in government, I saw many inequities, inefficiency, and I wanted to do a big change and impact, so to speak, but I am not a successful person. You see, in the 21st century, we live in a VUCA world. VUCA standing for volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. Every day we see all sorts of things happening that cannot be explained. And to me, that is a crisis. Secondly, we have to adapt to changing technology. So the fourth industrial revolution is coming very soon, or already here with us. And as Darwin said, those who survive well is because they are willing to adapt to change. It is not intelligence. It is not about skills. It's not about your education. It's about willingness and resiliency and adapting to change. Please remember that. The third, the sec, the next thing I want to tell you is my story. Right now, I'm the head of a school, but being the head of the school means I'm dealing with two programs: a pastoral program of development, which is what you know about United Nations
Yes.
Sustainable Development Goals, training, educating students to have strategies and skills to make it happen. Development. The second part is a bit more delicate, which is disaster management. Now, oftentimes, doctors, people think that disaster response is what we could do. It is more than that. No, I want to explain that with you. That's my current advocacy as of the moment. Please remember a formula that I'm sharing with you in crisis leadership education that I'm promoting now. Risk is a product of hazard or harm multiplied by exposure multiplied by vulnerability, which is the denominator below that is capacity. We can all intervene in crisis management and decreasing the risk for disaster by intervening with the exposure or improving our capacity to address vulnerability. Furthermore, I'd like to share with you that being medical doctors, it is not just medical practice. I'd like you to be clear about when you say I practice medicine, is it the practice of medicine as an art? Or is it the practice of the business of economics of medicine? Oftentimes, young doctors cannot differentiate the two. There's nothing wrong with one over the other, but it is important for you to delineate what is do, because the next thing I want to share with you is is yours and mine, my own moral obligation that in society we need to address business and politics because there are so many areas of corruption happening every day. This corruption is going to deprive the poor people of access to proper health care. It is getting to be more prevalent everywhere around the world. The next message I want to share with you is be very careful of the rise of pseudo experts, the superficial experts, doctors who think that because of their education, they are bestowed with higher knowledge and wisdom, and they can go around telling people what they want to people want to hear. And this is very dangerous because these are opinions and not necessarily peer reviewed consensus positions of medical professionals. So it further confuses the public, especially when these doctors have political ambition or engage with business materialism. I am surprised to see that even doctors are getting involved with becoming anti vaxxers or anti vaccination. And we unfortunately have become very bad role models for the young students who aspire to be idealistic doctors. We have to begin with ourselves. No? So my point here is our curriculum in medical education or education in all over the world should start thinking of reforms. We cannot have curriculum that we tolerate that we're tolerating right now. They are very static, they are very fragmented. It creates tribalism of medical professionals. And instead of integrating fixing inequity, we just want to have more doctors specialized in a particular field, earning a living, but not contributing to real change in a society. So the three things I want to impart with you being a medical doctor, we keep training, we keep teaching, and we must be able to transform our health systems if we want to improve our lot in society. Be more compassionate and think less of about economics. I think the rewards will come later. So I'd like to share those thoughts with you and what I'm doing right now. And please be involved with my advocacy that disaster is not only about disaster response, which is very attractive for many people, but that doesn't solve anything. Disaster means preparedness, prevention, recovery, and rehabilitation, where you need certain management competency. Thank you for listening to me.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ken, for your incredible sharing session. So we're going to have a question and answer, Dr. Ken. So If there are any question, you can raise your hand and we'll pass down the mic to you. And also you can use the question tab on your right side. So we have one question, Dr. Ken, from Dr. Chris. So Dr. Chris asks, can you restate the formula of risk?
Yes.
Dengan sini.
Risk. Risk is the product of four things. It's a product, and if you put that into a formula, you will have harm or hazard as the first numerator multiplied by exposure. You could have the harm, but you're not exposed to it. Then you would have the risk, even though there is some harm present in the environment. So harm times exposure times vulnerability. So an example of vulnerability is that you're immunocompromised, you are weak, you have not been taking your medication, or you have something systemic in you that prones you to becoming more sick. So if you multiply that with harm and you are exposed to somebody who's already sick, it could make your risk go up. So again, risk is a product of three things:
Itu biar bisa akses ke sana harus harus
multiplied by
bayar itunya ya.
exposure,
Bayar ya?
multiplied by vulnerability. And therefore, you could intervene with all of that by moving you away from the harm so that you decrease exposure, or you improve the welfare or immunity of a person so that the person is not vulnerable. If you equate that to a building working in a disaster sector, the same formula applies. There will always be the harm of earthquake. Earthquake will always be there. But if you multiply that with exposure, but you are not exposed in an earthquake-prone land, so then you are safer. So the risk goes down. But then you are vulnerable because you live in a dilapidated building where the building was constructed wrongly, and you are in an area where there is earthquake-prone land. Then your risk goes up. That equation, on the denominator, on the bottom part, you think about capacity. If I remove you from exposure or I improve your vulnerability, I can also improve your capacity by giving you knowledge, early warning system, or laboratory techniques for you to detect early, and therefore that capacity will then decrease the risk. So that's very well. Juni, thank you very much for writing it down. Exactly. That's the formula that everybody should remember. Now, sometimes they don't teach you this in medical school, but this is a universal formula we apply for disaster management or even crisis management. Terrorism, earthquake, storm, landslide, tsunami, and the like.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kat, for the answer. So, next question, probably the last question, Dr. Ken,
Yes.
from Dr. Santosh. So, Dr. Santosh was asking about how do you take politics for medicos? Should doctors be involved in politics?
The answer is both yes and no. You should reframe that question by saying, should a medical professional be a person in politics or of politics? There's a subtle distinction, no? A man in politics or of politics. We must involve with politics because politics is not really bad. Many people around the world use politics in a bad way. A bad politician, corrupt politician, the you were a victim of politics. Those kind of statements color politics. But in fact, if you look at the Oxford Dictionary and the Merriam Dictionary, where politics means it is an exercise of leadership, exercise of using the available resources in the country, where you make a decision to improve the lot of the common people, of the majority. And that's really is an exercise of the state, politicians, legislator, executives, or leaders of a country. But if it's been politicized in a wrong way, where they use politics for self-aggrandizement, in getting more money, being corrupted, trading favors, that is not politics. Real politics is an exercise of leadership which has been bastardized by our own leaders in our own country. So, should we get involved with politics? Yes, because we must not be captured by the bad politics, but we should get involved with politics because politics is about making rules and regulation, making policies and strategy, allocating budget, without which the healthcare program, systems, public health is not going to work without those legal mandates. Of course, doctors not only knowledgeable in clinical practice, but they must be involved with improving the health systems of a country. And therefore, the answer is they should be involved with politics.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Ken. So, Dr. Ken, due to the time limit, yeah, we're so sorry. So, thank you so much, Dr. Ken, for your amazing sharing session. And oh, yeah, and also, Dr. Ken, we have one question. Probably you can answer it through direct message if is that possible.
I'll do that. I'll answer it by typing on the answers to the questions. No
Okay.
problem.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ken.
Thank you.
Akash,
And I want to say something before you leave. Just now you were saying that I twist you to come. Actually, not. Dr. Ken has his heart for AMSA, and he has been the great supporter for AMSA Philippines and AMSA International. So thank you again, Dr. Ken. You're amazing.
thank you, Ever. Thank you. I'll stay on and answer the question. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Ken. So I'll
Thank you
pass
so
on
much.
the next session to my friend, Marjorie.
Okay, thank you, Yudis. And so now we are going to invite Dr. Adli Ali. He is also a super senior of mine from the National University of Malaysia. So I will be introducing his biodata, okay? So Dr. Adli Ali will be talking about the possibilities of COVID-19 vaccine. He is an evergreen pediatric immunologist. If you see, he's really young, okay? And he won the prestigious Oxford Fellowship and eagerly waited for the COVID-19 vaccine to make its debut. He will be reviewing the current situation in the COVID-19 race and the immunological treatment beyond the vaccine. So let's welcome Dr. Adli. The stage is yours, Dr. Adli.
Yeah. Hi. Can you all hear me, by the way? I'm
Yes.
not sure because I was
Yes.
changing.
Loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I have slides because I think that will possibly easier and kind of guide us in terms of visual and some of the words. But the question was asked by Dr. Christo and Dr. Devi when they approached me to basically share a few some of the thing it's about the possibilities of COVID-19 vaccine. Possibly the question is not about the possibilities of COVID-19 vaccine making it debut, but more of when actually, because I believe with the technology that we have now, the possibility is not possibility anymore. It's a reality that it's just going to happen sooner or later. So I'm going to review during the next few minutes that we have. It's basically just to look at the overview of what the current situation is. There were more ways. Can we move to the next slide? So the main question is, as of today, this is actually the latest diagram that I got from the Guardian, just published yesterday. So they've got more than different vaccines, candidate vaccine for COVID-19. And as you can see, most of them are in the preclinical stage. About 3/4 of them are in the preclinical stage. But what's interesting is that we could see that 7 is currently in phase 3, which is currently ongoing a large-scale human trial. And it's actually very remarkable because if you think about vaccine before, we are talking about a development of vaccine usually take about 8 to 10 years. And if you think about COVID-19 pandemic, this is only occurring over the last about at most a year. And we are seeing 7 that is currently ongoing phase 7. This is just a remarkable progress. Can we move to the next slide then? But I think one most interesting is that there's none yet approved. And I think I like to kind of emphasize this quote unquote because there's a new development which is kind of interesting about 2 weeks ago. So when we are talking about the COVID-19 vaccine, maybe you can move to the next slide. We are basically thinking about what is the aim of this so-called global race of having this COVID-19 vaccine. It's about producing a well-tolerated, a very safe and highly efficacious vaccine. And this is again the so-called infamous SARS-CoV-2 virus, as the picture here. It is a very kind of a beautiful vaccine if you think about it. The word corona actually refer to the crown. As you can see, the virus looks like they're having a crown. And really the crown, this so-called spike protein, is actually very important because most of the vaccine candidate that we have now is utilizing this crown as possible antigen for the development of vaccine. So can we move to the next slide then? So I think it is nice to know what are the main contenders and who are in the race, who are basically in the lead, and some of the outstanding or remarkable contenders that I might wanted to highlight. But you could see I listed down a few that I believe interesting enough, and it is, as you can see, from different part of the world. We have from the UK, we do have a company from German, and Bharat Biotech is from India. Gamalaya is actually a company from Russia, and we have a representative from our so-called Asian region, from the Singapore with the Luna COVID-19 vaccine, the Arcturus vaccine. But I think it will be interesting to see, to review some of the vaccine that is currently leading the race, and possibly we can move to the next slide. And we possibly are very familiar about the so-called Oxford COVID-19 vaccine, or possibly known as the ChAdOx nCoV-19, and also known as the AZD122 vaccine. It is quite interesting. It is not using a typical kind of classical traditional methods of making a vaccine. It is using an attenuated chimpanzee adenovirus, which genetically modified to code the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. And as I mentioned, this is developed by University of Oxford and together with their pharma partners, which is AstraZeneca. And I think the preliminary result is the one that actually making quite a wave over the last 1 month, where it published in Lancet, where it shows a very promising preliminary result involving about more than 1,000 healthy adults between the age of 18 to 55, and they show a very good immune response, both in the T cell and the antibody production. So the next vaccine that is possibly quite interesting will be the Oriental vaccine. Okay, we know that we believe, or people kind of assume, this vaccine is from China. Possibly we can move to the next slide. So it is empirical that possibly China would definitely have, will be among the countries or region that will actually come up with the vaccine. And true enough, they have several, but I think the most one, or the one that leading the path, will be possibly this 85 nCoV vaccine. It is actually the first vaccine to enter the phase 1 trial developed by the Beijing Institute of Biotechnology and CanSino Biologic. It used a similar approach as of the one that the Oxford University had developed. They used the 85 vector, just a different vector, but using a similar approach, using the genetic code of the spike glycoprotein. The phase 1, the phase 2 trial have shown a very good, promising result. And I think one interesting point about this so-called phase 2 trial is, despite the numbers is smaller, we could see that 13% of the participants were aged more than 55. And I think this is interesting because most of the patients who have COVID-19 with symptomatic and the severe kind of phenotype usually involve the older patients. And this, as far as the time now, are the only vaccine where have been showing results in an elderly patients. And it also shows that one single injection of this so-called vaccine is enough to induce a comparable immune response to 2 doses. And I think that's another interesting point of this so-called vaccine. The third vaccine that possibly I want to highlight will be, possibly moving the next slide, using a slightly different approach. I call it the EU-US hybrid because it's actually from Germany, but Pfizer, the pharma company, is actually a US company. They are using a slightly different approach. They don't use a viral vector, but they use a nanoparticle lipid nucleoside modified mRNA vaccine to basically deliver the receptor binding domain of the SARS-CoV. And again, the preliminary result from the German phase 1 and 2 trial is very promising. It shows a very good response of, at least from the antibody production. Of course, we are talking about the vaccine from the UK, we are talking about vaccine from China, we are talking vaccine from the Europe. Okay, we move to the next slide. Is there any vaccine from the American? Yeah, and possibly this is the one that called the All-American vaccine. It is developed by Moderna and the United States, the US National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. This is again a similar approach as the German vaccine, where they use an mRNA vaccine and encode the same SARS-CoV spike immunogen. But what interesting, despite this is much later in progress, is the first vaccine efficacy trial under the so-called Operation Warp Speed. It just started in July, but this Operation Warp Speed is probably of an interest because it is a multi-agency consortium in the US to accelerate the development and manufacturing as well as distribution of medical countermeasures for COVID-19. And somehow it kind of like specifically for the vaccine. It possibly could change the whole context of the race, because if it's really true and it is under the so-called Operation Warp Speed, the licensing, the manufacturing, the distribution of this vaccine, if it's efficacious, will possibly gonna make it a good contender for all the vaccine. I have a few minutes left, but I think something that I possibly do not really pro of when they wanted to produce or mention about this so-called phase 3 vaccine, and why I can't consider it an all-American vaccine, because the statement that came out from the NIH director back in July, saying that having a safe and effective vaccine distributed by end of 2020 is a stretch, but it is the right goal for the American people. I know it might be contentious because they are speaking to the US press, but having that statement when the pandemic is worldwide is a bit not in the right context. So it kind of worry me with this Operation Warp Speed. Is there going to be a monopoly of this so-called vaccine, and making sure that not inequality of the vaccine supply? That would be very worrying in one context. We can move to the next slide. I think this is possibly something I want to highlight and kind of rather interesting, because about 2 weeks ago, or possibly about 2 weeks ago, suddenly Russia came into pictures and come out with say that they have the first registered COVID-19 vaccine. It kind of changed the whole context. Why? Because this vaccine was never really in the radar. It was listed in the WHO as a candidate vaccine, but it was in the phase 1 as far as what we know. So we have limited data on the vaccine. They never published their phase 1 trial or phase 2 trial or even phase 3 trial. And then suddenly on the 11th of August 2020, the Prime Minister just says that, okay, we have Sputnik V, which is called the COVID-19 vaccine. The only thing that I possibly going to highlight, my time is up, is that it's developed using the similar approach by the UK Oxford or AstraZeneca vaccine. So it is interesting to see how efficacious this so-called vaccine in actually treating all this pandemic. But having said that, to conclude, yes, the possibility of COVID-19 vaccine is not far. As you can see, we have a lot of candidates. It is about when, and it is about, is it safe? Is it going to be highly efficacious? Is it going to actually change the whole pandemic and the current situation that we are having now? With that, I would like to thank you and for the kind opportunity for me to talk to this platform today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adli, for the amazing session. I think it is the first time for many to actually really have a deeper insight of all of the vaccines that are going on right now. So maybe we will just take one question from the floor. Okay. Okay, there's this question from Dr. Jinyi and also Dr. Chris. Ooh, so I think I would just combine both of them together because it's more like asking about the development of vaccines. So Dr. Chris asks, Indonesia is working with Sinovac doing phase 3 and going to produce corona anti-vaccine, the inactivated vaccine. What do you think? Is it similar with CanSino? And Dr. JY, he asked, Dr. Adli, what do you think of the claim from Russia regarding the vaccine produced by them? Any possibilities of it being ready as they have claimed? So,
okay. So let's answer Dr. Juni's question first, because I need to repeat. I need to repeat Dr. Crystal's question again. Juni, yes, as I mentioned, Sputnik 5 or Sputnik V, or what they call it, 5 or V, is in a way already in the market, or not in the market. It's already there in Russia. It is registered in Russia. I don't know how much it costs in a way, but it's available for possibly the Russian people. So is it true? We don't have the data. I think they were possibly saying that they're going to publish it, the phase 1 and phase 2 data. We know that they don't really do the really full phase 3 trial. But if you're looking at the concept, the immunological concept behind it, they are using the similar approach as of the CanSino Biologics or the China vaccine as well as the Oxford vaccine. The only difference is that they are using the human adenovirus rather than the chimpanzee or a commercial one. I'm not really familiar with the so-called human adenovirus, but a worry of the so-called human adenovirus is it's just a vector. But if you are already exposed to adenovirus, because it's a human virus, we are not sure how the immune response of this vaccine will interplay as in terms of protection. So that's one worry in terms of we do not really have the data and we're not sure how it is. But to be fair, they are using the similar vector for the development of Ebola vaccine and they have shown results, quite a positive result on that. So the jury is still out there. Yes, it kind of changed the whole dynamic, but because it's only available so far in Russia. I think they made a statement that Philippines will possibly got this vaccine by November. So again, I'm not sure how it's true, but it will be very interesting. I think for the good of the world, that's a very nice development. It's a positive development for the treatments of COVID-19 situation. Dr. Christo's question again, Omayuri?
Okay, so Indonesia is working with Sinovac, doing the phase 3 right now. And what do you think about it? Is it similar with CanSino?
Okay, to be fair, I am not that familiar. There was like hundreds and more vaccines, and I only reviewed the top one. So Dr. Christo possibly have more ideas behind it. But again, one of the limitations, I don't really know the platform or the approach that they use. But just to tell us roughly, one approach is using so-called the DNA materials packed in the envelope, such as the adenovirus, the one that they use for the Oxford one, the one in China, as well as the Russian one. And then there's an mRNA approach, which is basically the one that being used by the German company, as well as the Moderna US company. The one in India, one is Bharat, is using an inactivated live vaccine. So possibly something that you know. And another one is in Singapore, which is actually very interesting. I not managed to talk about it. They are using something similar to the US one, but a bit more modern technology, which kind of interesting from the immunological point of view. I really wanted to know how that vaccine going to develop. But saying that, I'm so sorry, Dr. Christo, I'm not sure what the approach is. But I believe from the vaccinologist, immunologist opinion, if they are following some sort of the principle that we kind of know of in terms of immune response and they show a positive result, I think that's a good candidate, possible candidate to change the current pandemic that we are having right now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Adli. It was really insightful, but there are so many other questions here. Is it okay if you direct message or answer them via the live chat so everyone knows of the answers?
Okay, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Adli. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adli.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adli. You're so amazing.
Okay, so next I will pass to my partner again, Judith.
Yes, let's continue for the next session with Dr. Christo. So it will be about beware epidemic over pandemic could occur. So,
Sorry, Judith. Dr. Bimo.
oh, Dr. Bimo first. I'm so sorry. Okay, let's go to Dr. Bimo.
Dr. Christopher is okay.
Okay, I'm so sorry, Dr. Bimo. So I'll just continue with, I'll introduce you, Dr. Bimo first. I'm so sorry. So Dr. Bimo will be talking about living the future of medicine today, implementing innovation during a pandemic to save life. So Dr. Bimo has 15 years experience in digital health. He was called to be a medical doctor and his passion is in sustainable innovation to improve quality of life. Chairman of Indonesian Health Tech Association, healthtech.id from 2018. Founder of Pro Sehat Virtual Health Assistant and CEO of Atoma Medical. So, Dr. Bimo, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Bimo, the stage is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for the time, all the AMSA family. This is very, how do I say it? This is very nostalgic actually for me. And I was just in a meeting yesterday with my friends that I think like 15 years ago, I think in like a second or third grade in medical school, I was proposing a poster competition about pharmacogenomics, and yesterday we were talking about pharmacogenomics and how that it's very hard to educate like doctors to understand about the genomics and how to do it in a daily practice. And but right now with all these technologies that we are doing, it is very how should this is something that we need to understand. So I will start my presentation about the six characters attributing the medicine and health. So I was talking about genetics just a few minutes ago. So this is about the accelerating digital technology that we see the super convergence. So all the IoT device, all the genomics, all the data that we have doing a cure, or our job as a doctor is actually not only diagnose and curing. Oh, wait, my share slide. Let me see. Let me share again. Okay. So, so we see that the healthcare technology it's very broad actually, and this is the reason why I entered the medical school. Actually, when I was in high school, I see the I think in the next 20, 30 years, the medical technology would be very big, and that's the reason why I was entering the medical school, and I'm very happy to be here and doing the my dream job. Actually, being a startup founder is not very it's not a happy life that people think. It's even harder at some point, but it's okay. We learn the hard way about anything, right? So if you are talking about this, some are we already see in the practice, some are still far away. But anyway, the point that Indonesia itself. So I think in Indonesia we have like 100 startups in health tech, and its number is growing. And also, I understand that today is a hackathon, right? So, and I also help a few hackathon here to add more than 30, 40 initiatives have been doing in the pandemic. So, I'm helping the association because we want to have the ecosystem to grow. And I'm also open to the AMSA family that this is something that we can do together, we can work together. And nonetheless, almost everything I work with, partnering with like Dr. Christo. Have been working with. I'm also working with his team for a few years to do things that haven't been done before. Okay, so let's give something about the one. So, what health tech is happening and how it's changing during COVID-19. So there's a lot of new technology happening, and we see that the point that the telehealth was never been mainstream in healthcare. But you see now that we can only, people are afraid to go to see doctors. Right? We never think that they are so afraid to see us, but we need to see doctors. So telehealth is not about only video call. It is about the EMR. This is about connecting to the surface after we are doing the virtual consultation. So an oversimplified model of like digital health adoption. It's like we start from technical validation, evidence, regulatory, blah blah blah, awareness, credibility. But what happened now? So this is something that we jump directly to awareness. We jump directly to commercial model. So thank you, Dr. Ken, that as doctors we are not really into the commercial, but maybe my point from like Dr. Kisar, maybe we are since we are working a lot in a directly commercial to B2C products. So we need to still think about that. Okay, and however, in I think it's not only happening in Indonesia. This slide was developed for on the Indonesia audience, but we see that the village are already having internet connection, but it is not easy. People should climb tree even to get a spot to connect. So, but we're not going back to all the school model. Okay, there is something that has been happening like for the last 2-3 months about innovation task force. Even like Indonesia, the government stopped all the research, and then there's a small thing about the venture that I built with my team. So it took some years to realize that what is actually beneficial for the user, for the people, and the stakeholder. And but with this COVID-19 pandemic, there's a lot of things that we are doing, and it helped a lot. And even the government recognize what we have been done. Even the local government also, and the ICT ministry. So first thing first, if it's hard to start, but the way to get started is quit talking and begin doing. This is very something that I really embrace to my team also. There is a few things that we can discuss on this, but let's open the question.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Bimo, for your amazing sharing session. So yes, we have question from from Priyajan from Nepal. So he was asking, in telehealth care system, how the investigation like imaging and biochemical investigation carried out, since in telemedicine we can say only clinical history and examination.
Yeah, I think so. We cannot stop thinking that telemedicine is just like doing virtual like this. Okay, the reason why even my company is not about the telemedicine. It's not about the on-demand healthcare. It's about it's about delivering the healthcare. So from the experience, like actually the quote-unquote telemedicine model, accidentally my team was started in 2005. It was a media blog, and then we put it. The name is Ask Your Doctor, or in Bahasa Tanya Dokter Anda. And suddenly people are keep questioning, and then we see that this is not enough. Okay, we are too early, even before some big names are here in Indonesia. But we see that this is not possible if we only doing like chatting or doing like even video call. So we need to work with a lab. We need to work with a clinic vaccine. We need to work with all hospitals and how we can continue. So the point is continuing care. Okay, the point is continuing care. This is the only. This is one of the only way we can do like consultation, or this is one of the telecommunication we are doing. But even the telemedicine cannot run without like the proper EMR. That's a big problem that we have actually in the healthcare. We don't have interoperability in almost all healthcare system. One and other hospital even cannot speak like system to system, right? I don't say like doctor to doctor. We can speak doctor to doctor, but system to system, they cannot speaking.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Bivo. Is there any more question from the floor? You can raise your hand or use the question tab. Anyone? Or you want to share anything else?
Yeah, I think the way we see so. Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you, Dr. Adli.
Yep. I think it's the answer for his question.
I think that's the way that I mean doing a full shot like every years the strain is different, right?
Yeah.
So speaking like that, so there's an effort for universal vaccination that actually try to find the next step mutation ahead. I think with the AI is very beneficial here because with AI, the machine learning can predict how is the virus or the or enemy, like quote unquote, the disease will evolve, will mutate, and then we create and find the way that the cure or perhaps the prevention that we want to make. Right, so there is an effort for in universal vaccination. I think it's for flu basically, but for now it's maybe too expensive. Even the cheap one is it's very hard to ask people to have it. Right?
Okay, Dr. Bimo, I think the time is up for your session. Thank you so much for your amazing presentation. I hope everyone can get a beneficial side from your presentation. So yeah, everyone stop talking and start doing. Okay. Next. Thank you so much.
So much.
Yeah.
Bimo.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bimo. Okay. I think I'll pass the next session to my partner, Marjorie.
Hi, thank you so much, it is. Thank you so much, Dr. Bimo. So next we will have Dr. Chris. So Dr. Chris is here with
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Chris. So I will be introducing you to the audience, yeah? Okay. So Dr. Chris will
Yeah,
have a topic.
I'm sorry I'm in the middle of travel, but I can.
Okay. So, Dr. Chris, would you would like to start now with the slides on? Are you okay with the setting?
I have a suggestion. Why don't we
Have the slide presentation.
Okay, sure. My team is setting up. While they set up, I'm going to introduce you. Okay. So Dr.
Yeah.
Chris, he's going to share and talk about beware epidemic of a pandemic could occur. Every year, tens of thousands of adults die and hundreds of thousands more are hospitalized due to diseases that could have been prevented by vaccination. Okay, this passage has always been an inspiration for Dr. Chris, as he was
Mhm.
always called before graduating from Universitas Indonesia, University of Indonesia, as an internist. He is the founder of In Harmony Clinic, the first vaccination clinic in Indonesia in 2011. After he graduated, he then focused himself pursuing knowledge in the field of vaccinology and took a masterclass in vaccines at London 2016. Having his business growing into a multi-chain clinic, he took his master degree in business administration, specializing in strategic marketing in 2018, knowing that prevention is built upon awareness that should be communicated through constant education in health promotion. Facing this pandemic that hits the global population, people are obsessed with fighting COVID, overlooking other diseases that might probably creep and cripple millions of people. Vaccination program has been disrupted by lockdowns that happen across the world. What will the world be without vaccination? Will we suffer another pandemic? So let us join now with his talk and to see about how the world has overlooked the immunization program due to COVID and what we can do about it to prevent another pandemic. The stage is all yours, Dr. Chris.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and thank you for the committee. And I have to apologize for everyone that I'm still in the middle of a travel, but that's okay. Anything could happen, but life has to, show must go on, okay? So could I have the next slide, please? Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so when I joined medical faculty and almost finishing my residency, I started to see that the world, especially we in Indonesia, are still facing a lot of infectious disease and a lot of outbreaks like the HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, even hepatitis A and cervical cancer and everything. Next slide, please. So when I joined a seminar in vaccinology, I saw one of the professors said that of this journal that every year tens of thousands of adults die and hundreds of thousands more are hospitalized due to disease that could have been prevented by vaccination. So it was a pity that we could not protect them and we could not prevent the disease, although the disease have been able to be prevented by vaccination. And as I learned even more about vaccines, I just knew that vaccine is more than a way to protect yourself. It's not only protecting ourselves, it's about protecting the people around us as well. So that's why I built my first clinic. Next slide, please. The In Harmony is the first vaccination clinic in Indonesia. Next slide, please. So our mission in Harmony is simple. We want to help our world to eradicate vaccine-preventable diseases, and we want to help our nation, especially Indonesia, towards disease elimination. Because in Indonesia, even disease elimination is still very challenging. Next slide, please. So, talking about COVID-19, the pandemic that occurs in the world right now, we see that this era of pandemic is era of chaos, where chaos is the new standard. We have the order of the new world that whatever exists might be absent in a few days or weeks, and whatever you can imagine might become reality in another few weeks or months. That's why I think it's the right way that AMSA and AMSA alumni now created the hackathon, because we hope that this hackathon is not just for hackathon purpose, not just for competition and getting the reward, but it's about the future, how we could create a better world, even if we are facing this era of chaos. Next slide, please. So I heard a meme, joke in social media about COVID, and the doctors. Doctors are dying because of COVID-19. Even in Indonesia, a lot of doctors died because of COVID. So people joke that you want to know how it feels to be a healthcare people during this COVID pandemic. See the Titanic movie lah. When you see the band continue to play, well, that's us. Yeah, even in the sinking ship. Yeah, next slide, please. So we as a medical healthcare people have to know that this kind of pandemic is not happened once. It has already happened for many times, so many times in the world. Like one century ago, we faced the similar thing caused by a flu, the Spanish flu, right? Next slide, please. At that era, people were reluctant to go anywhere. They have to wear face masks just like now, and they cannot meet each other just like now. So the challenge we face right now by healthcare people and the layman is the disease that has already been able to be prevented by vaccination. Why did I say that? Because vaccination rates are dropping, even in a country that perceive vaccine as one major intervention for public health. Even in US, vaccination rate are dropping weeks by weeks. Right? Okay, next slide, please. So the CDC and MMWR published that even the up-to-date vaccination have declined to less than 50% among most of children less than 2 years. Children less than 2 years are the most important segment. The babies are the most important one to be vaccinated because it's their primary vaccination. Next slide, please. Even WHO reported global disruption in immunization outreach, where everything has been disrupted. So many campaigns of vaccination, even the public health initiative, the mandatory vaccination campaign has been postponed. Next slide, please. So what will happen then? The WHO and Measles Rubella Initiative, MRI, has published that more than 117 million children are at risk of missing out measles vaccine. Measles are even more deadly, even deadlier to the babies and infants than COVID-19, right? It is fair. They are the prone people. Yeah, next slide, please. So UNICEF and WHO has seen decline months by months. Even the obligatory vaccine like DTP, the coverage has been declined this year. Next, compared to last year. Next slide, please. That's why the CDC has said that to avoid outbreaks of vaccine-preventable disease and keep children protected, vaccinations are essential, that has to be taken care of. Next slide, please. So I just want to share with you right now to bring you into awareness, and by giving you a reflection, what if we have a world without vaccination? Next slide. So you know that measles kills. why I said that, in US that has declared measles elimination in 2000, they have some recent outbreaks again. In 2015, they had Disneyland measles that struck 14 states in 2015, causing 147 new measles cases that has not been resolved until now. That's why the measles vaccination campaign has now been resumed in US. Next. And what I don't want to see is if the polio will re-emerge and become another outbreak, it will be a devastating disease that we might face again. You know that right now, polio has been 99% eliminated, almost eradicated. Yeah. If it happens again, so many people have to be ventilated again. Next slide, please. And Indonesia has another outbreak in diphtheria in 2017, 2018, and it will happen even more, even with even more devastating outcome if we don't have the DPT vaccination resume. Next, please. Next slide, please. Hello? Is there anything happen with the slide?
Hold on, yeah, Dr. Chris, I think it's a technical issue.
Okay, that's okay.
Tamar, or okay, yes.
Yeah, it's almost finished. So, what can we do to tackle this? So, the UNICEF has sounded to us, healthcare people, to restore our services so that countries can safely deliver routine immunization services, even though we are facing COVID-19 pandemic. And the layman and other organizations have to help health workers to communicate actively caregivers, to explain how services have to be reconfigured and to ensure the safety of vaccination service so that people will be eager to have their babies vaccinated again. Next slide, please. So if you want to have a guideline on how to continue the routine immunization service during COVID-19 pandemic, you can just scan in this slide, yeah, and find the guideline published by WHO. Next slide, please. So why the last thing that I want to say is that why do I insist to bring out this session is about that I want to share again with you the history of epidemic and pandemic that has been occurred before, because when we learn about history, we will be able to be wiser in the future. Like Theodore Roosevelt said, the more you know about the past, the better you prepare for the future. To learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So we don't want to have another epidemic or even pandemic, and that's why we have to continue vaccinating people, babies, children, and adults to prevent another outbreak over this pandemic that already have devastated outcome in many countries worldwide. Next slide, please. So thank you very much for listening to my session, and for you who wants to get a copy of my slide, I encourage you to give a feedback, a 2-minute feedback, just by going to your browser and clicking to this link bit.ly/AMSA Big Day. I'm hoping to get feedback from you. I know that this is not a perfect presentation, but I'm hoping that you still can give me feedback. You can also scan to this QR code, and you can also connect with me to my Instagram at dr.christophorus. I hope that this short presentation can inspire you and give you an overview of what will happen if we don't really take care of the other vaccination that has already begun by not vaccinating over this pandemic era. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Chris. It was really inspiring knowing that we get to have so many insights about vaccinations today. It is a really new hot topic that we should focus at this point of time. Okay, so I think I'm going to pick maybe one question from the floor due to the time limit. And audience, you may engage in the Q&A by raising your hand or using the question tab. Maybe one question. Don't feel shy, guys. Okay. I think everyone is actually very clear. Crew, please let me know if I miss any question. But I don't see any from my side now.
But maybe Dr. Crystal would like to say one last word to all the audience.
Yeah, I'm wishing that this vaccination issue, like Dr. Kenneth also said about the anti-vax, and Dr. Adli said that there's a new hope in COVID vaccine. I hope that even in this pandemic era, people are not just talking about the COVID vaccine. They have to be aware that there are a lot of vaccines that has saved millions of lives worldwide every day. Every single day, so many people has been saved by vaccine. So please do take care of the current vaccinations program that has been done in your site, in your countries, and continuing vaccinations while doing our best to prevent COVID-19. I think that will be the best for everybody.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Crystal.
Okay. And Dr. Crystal is also one of our judge and coach later. So see you later, Dr. Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm just going to give a little short briefing of how we are going to move, okay? So we'll be splitting into two amid tracks, and right now we'll be having our broadcaster to broadcast the amid track links, Nibra Sodavina, to share it at the live chat. And so we will be going to two different links. Participants of the first amid track, please proceed to the first link, and participants of the second amid track, please proceed to the second link. I repeat, first track participants go to the first track link, second track participants proceed to the second track link. The whole session from the prototyping until the semi-finals will be held at your respective track links. Okay, so we will put a pause at this main amid link, and we will come back here again during the final session. So from here onwards, it will be at the respective amid tracks. Okay, so it is sent here at the top by Nibras, our broadcaster. So see you guys then. We will have a 30-minute break. I repeat, a 30-minute break. So we will meet at 1:30 p.m. GMT plus 8. Okay? So 1:30 p.m. GMT plus 8. See you guys at your amid tracks. For the observers, you are free to roam and jump to any amid you want.
And don't forget to join our AMSAC competition.
Yes.
Marjorie will tell you more about it.
Okay, so the AMSAAC competition briefing will be done by our GM and LO. Okay, so later they will be broadcasting the details at the groups. So please check it out at the amid track that you guys will be joining later. Okay, so right now we will be ending this session, and see you guys then. And that's all.
Thank you, Marjorie. And then those who are staying, those observers, you are open. This competition is open to you. If you are not being in any of the track, if you are an observer and you decide not to go for a hackathon, you can have fun with your friends and send us your video.
Yes. And another thing, you cannot log into two amidst at once. So if you're an observer and you want to jump here and there, I encourage you to close the existing browser before jumping to the other. I repeat, close the existing browser before jumping to the other. Okay, have fun. Take a break. Rehydrate yourself. Take your lunch. We'll see you guys again later. Okay, bye.
Bye.